to another edition of Conversations with and for Entrepreneurs We Love. My name is Craig Oldham. I'm the managing partner at Madlow Executive Advisors. And today we are joined by Neil Weitzman. He is a fractional CRO at Madlow, as well as a number of different firms. He has his own firm, but Neil has sales and marketing experience across a number of industry verticals in B2B, SMB, mid-market, enterprise, and he's built and led teams globally and is really a resident sales expert in my mind. We've worked on a couple projects together and just super impressed with Neil and his insights on how he kind of builds out teams. Welcome, Neil.
Thank you, Craig. And you made me sound wonderful there. I really appreciate it.
Well, you are wonderful, Neil.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I'm excited to talk to you.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's the rare time when sales and marketing actually get along, right?
Yes, they should get along much more often because it's pretty. they are hand in glove, and or whatever another analogy you want. But
that's right, exactly.
Together, so, yeah,
exactly right. Well, today we were having a conversation the other day about CEOs and what makes them successful, and it's been kind of this ongoing topic. We've got a lot of things that are changing in the world. We've got a potential looming recession here in the U.S., and we're transitioning back. By the way, Neil is from Canada, so he's got another different perspective on pandemic and coming back to work and trying to figure out all of these things and how do we work remotely. And we were talking to Jamie Klein earlier this week and wanted to get your perspective on that as well. What do you really see, Neil, as kind of the couple of the top things that really drive success from a CEO standpoint in helping them build their business, helping them be successful really for the long term?
Yeah. Oh man. Great and deep question.
Right. It's long, right?
Yeah. We could probably go back to the golf course that I just came from with the shirt I have on and talk about it for a while. But I guess there's probably a few things, but I'll call one out that I think is important to start, and then get your thoughts maybe. But the first one is probably an overused term, but it might be the most important, and that's kind of focus. You can say it 100 times. One of the things I guess I've seen in my experience working with smaller and emerging growth companies are CEOs who have obviously incredible vision and leadership skills, but maybe not as much an appetite for patience. And so the idea of creating a plan, staying focused on that plan, and I guess two things: not trying to move too quickly through that plan, right? If you build a 12-month plan, it's a 12-month plan for a reason. You can't necessarily squish things in. Testing and learning and practicing, it just ultimately takes time. You can't condense 3 months of learning into 1 week. And a lot of CEOs, I think, try to do that a little too often. A good example of that is when you onboard new people, right? You onboard new salespeople, there's an impetus to get them up and running as quickly as possible and get them up into market. And rightly so, right? There's a cost there. But ultimately, if you move too quick and too fast, it has an exponentially greater chance of failure and not working out. So you have to find that right balance. And then back to the word focus, I guess, Craig, I'd just say you can't do 100 things at once. By definition, a smaller company has less resources. We really need to be laser targeted on everything from what is the ICP and staying focused on that to what are the, I'm making up a number here. What are the 3 initiatives that we're going to do this month, and not try to do 20 all at the same time? Anyway, I'll pause there.
No, that's great. I what was coming into my mind thinking about that is, how do you balance focus with sense of urgency? Because like you and I, business leaders are type A personalities and very impatient. And you brought up the word impatience as you think about that. In your mind, how do you balance those things between focus and sense of urgency?
Great question.
I didn't mean to stump you on that one, but
I'm probably out of my depth to try to talk about this intelligently. Maybe I'll just try to think about it from an experience standpoint. I guess I'd say I believe, and I've seen by focusing on one or a few things at a time and working through them to completion, and then moving to the next one, shows progress, gives the feeling of quick moving progress, but still is focused, because you're not doing 20 things over the course of a month.
Yeah.
Maybe you're doing 3 things a week and then 3 things the next week. So you're still focused, right? People, I find when you try to give, whether it's delegation or collaboration, whatever we're talking about, doing, like saying, hey, Craig, there's 10 things we want to accomplish this week. It just doesn't work. But if I say, Craig, there's 2 things and only 2 things we really need to focus on this week, there's a way greater chance that we're going to be successful at those 2 things. And then we'll do the next 2 next week.
That's right.
That doesn't mean we're not moving quickly. It just means we're kind of dealing with it in a different project management type of way.
Absolutely. Prioritization, right? I mean, I think that is kind of where what you're saying, and I completely agree with you. It's not everything has to be all done today. And having that plan that you talked about and being able to sequence what needs to get done today and what can be put off tomorrow and still be effective, I think are the things you have to balance, right?
Yeah, no, I agree fully. And it's tough. It is tough for sure.
Yeah, I love that. All right. So you wrote an article recently, and we're going to do a link to the show notes on this. And one of the things that certainly close to my field in marketing and being a fractional CMO is marketing is sales. And I like that part in there that you talked about that. Can you expand on that a minute for me?
Yeah, I'd love to. So in my career, I've been a pretend Craig. I've been a CMO for a little bit. You've been a CMO for a long time, a lot more experience than I have. But I've dabbled in the world of the marketing side and being a CMO. And I think I've come, I hope I would have realized this even if I hadn't been a CMO. But I think because I've walked in people like your shoes a little bit, I think I really believe and understand that marketing, there's no sales, there's no marketing. It's all about driving revenue and building the brand. And the more we departmentalize these things, the worse off we're going to be. I understand it's needed for team building and structure and hierarchy and leadership. I get that. But the more walls you put up, the more problems you're going to have. Marketing, in my experience, has been, in the companies I've worked with, and I've seen this time and time again, is marketing too often is a bit of an afterthought for smaller companies. It's, hey, let's really knock it out of the park on sales. We need more salespeople. Let's do that. And then maybe later it's, oh, right, now we need to think about marketing and what our brand's all about, and what type of campaigns we want to run, and what does that look like, and how do we do demand gen, and geez, we should build a nice brochure. All these things are fundamentally important to not just building the brand, but to making the salespeople effective.
Yeah.
If you don't have this stuff thought about and built out at the beginning, just to throw out a silly number, I don't know what the right number is, but your salespeople are going to be 10, 20, 50% less effective because they don't have this thinking, this consistency, this on-point messaging, the whatever creative needed to show yourself as a professional organization. All these things are really, really, really important. So I believe that when you start thinking about the word sales, the word marketing is right beside it. We build these things together and at the same time, not one and then the other.
Yeah. I completely agree with you. And I know, with us working together, we completely agree with that, because marketing is sales, sales is marketing. Your marketing CMO has to be into sales, and your head of sales has to be into marketing. I mean, it doesn't work if you don't have those two things going together. We joked coming onto this it's often a big sign of that is when your CMO and your head of sales are fighting, right, over numbers. That means they're completely out of sync. And one of those things you really have to watch out as a CEO. Your sales and marketing leaders have to get along. That's your growth engine, right? Yeah. So if they're not in sync, then you've got some problems.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, we're not going to get into it today, but that brings into the idea you alluded to of having the leaders of the departments
Yeah.
being aligned to exactly the same goal and target, not a bunch of different other feel-good vanity metrics and MQLs and all this. To me, it's all about, if you have a VP of marketing and VP of sales, the only thing that we're focused on is ultimately revenue together.
That's right. I mean, you really should be sitting down and doing your plan together, right?
Yeah.
And that's where I've seen it work. We've done that on engagements where you take the business strategy and turn that into a marketing plan. But it can't just be a marketing plan. It's got to be a marketing and sales plan for sure.
Agreed.
To be successful. All right. So the other topic you bring up in this article, and I love this because I want you to explain this to me, right? Which is slow is smooth and smooth is fast. I think I had a bourbon like that once.
There's probably a lot of jokes and analogies in that one. And that's a saying. I'm gonna embarrass myself. I believe it's a saying from the U.S. Marines. Someone's probably going to hear me say that and say, "No, you're an idiot, Neil. That's wrong." It's something to do with the military and a saying that group had. I think it was the U.S. Marines or Navy SEALs. I'm not sure. But anyway, I love it. It's a great tagline or phrase. And I guess that we talked about this a little bit a couple minutes ago. It's the idea of making sure that you are moving quickly, but the way to move quickly is by kind of moving slowly and planning things out. There's always a time to plan, and you should always plan. I'm a big planner and very organized and detailed, and I think that's very important in business. But then you have to make sure that you're thinking things through with the bias for action to a decision. And so there's we've all heard the phrase analysis by paralysis, right? So there's too much you can do, right? If you do, let's say you're testing out a new sales go-to-market motion, and you want to look at all that information and data. So at what point, like for how many months, depending on your sales cycle, are you going to test it? Are you going to look at the data and so on before you make a decision on, is it working? Is it not working? Right. So there's a step there to say how much is too much and how much is it that before we can just make a decision. So slow and smooth and fast, slow is smooth, smooth is fast is all about that. Right. So my advice of always is let's move as quickly as we can. Small companies, of course, should have the advantage of quick and nimble decision making, right? Hopefully it comes way later where we get bogged down, unfortunately, by sometimes corporate hierarchy and structure and too much process. We got to be very careful as smaller organizations not to let that happen. So we want to keep moving very, very quickly, but you have to take time to analyze the data.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Not too much, but analyze the data, debate it, and then decide and move, test and learn and optimize. So the balance is in there somewhere, and it's not easy. It's easy to talk about, hard to implement. But if you keep that, I feel if you keep that in mind and keep that concept in mind, then it's like anything. You can always say, well, hold on, we're getting ahead of ourselves, or we're moving too slowly here. Remember, slow is smooth, smooth is fast, and keep that as a bit of a mantra. Anyway, I think that's really important. I've seen that work really well, and I've seen it not work so well.
Love mantras. Easy to remember, for sales and marketing guys like us. So, all right. So we got focus. Make sure you stay focused on the end game. Marketing is sales. Sales is marketing. It doesn't necessarily mean you need a CMO and a head of sales, but you've got to think about the functions as you're putting together your plan. And then lastly, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. Be thoughtful about the next steps that you make.
And it is, I just Google search it. It is U.S. Navy SEALs. I just wanted to make sure I got that
right. Neil, thanks for joining today. Really appreciate it as always. If you want more information about Neil, you can visit matlow.net and you'll find Neil's bio there. And we'll also have a link to your article in the show notes.
Craig, thanks so much. Always a pleasure to talk to you and working with you as always. But I appreciate your time and look forward to talking to you again.
Thank you, my friend.